What can $1 million prize cost someone who is about to lose everything? This is the question that echoes in Igor's mind, a humble dishwasher, as he watches his life crumble around him. In a moment of desperation and desire, he decided not to share his luck with his wife, Athena, fearing that splitting the prize would pull them further apart. But the irony of fate awaited him on a day that should have marked his liberation, when the signing of the divorce papers would become a milestone in his new life. Igor had always dreamed of a better life. Since he was a child, he spent hours dreaming of owning his own home, traveling, and having a future free of financial worries. However, reality was quite different. As a dishwasher in a busy restaurant in Sao Paulo, he struggled to pay the bills and maintain a household, even as the love between him and Athena began to deteriorate. Arguments and misunderstandings became routine, and the idea of divorce started to feel inevitable. The pressure of work, the lack of money, and dissatisfaction in his personal life weighed on his shoulders like a heavy backpack. When Igor won the lottery, his heart leapt with joy but quickly turned to anxiety. He was uncertain about what to do. The prize could change his life forever, but the thought of sharing this fortune with Athena terrified him. He decided to keep the secret, thinking he could use the money to start over without the burdens of the past. With each passing day, the lie became an even heavier weight, but he believed he was making the right choice. However, life has a way of playing tricks. The day he finally sat down with the lawyer to sign the divorce papers was also the day he received the call that would change everything. The voice of the lottery attendant rang out on the other end of the line, and the revelation that followed left Igor paralyzed. The prize was about to be released. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The irony of the situation was not lost on him. Just as he was preparing to free himself from Athena, the fortune he had long desired was about to materialize. As he struggled with his emotions, the atmosphere around him felt more oppressive than ever. The restaurant, once a place of work, was now filled with painful memories. He could sense the gaze of his colleagues, the whispered conversations about his impending divorce, and the expectation that he would talk about what was happening in his life. Igor had always been a reserved person, but the pressure was becoming unbearable. He wondered if he had made the wrong decisions or if he should have shared his luck with Athena. Interactions with colleagues, like Tanya, a waitress who had always supported him, made him realize how isolated he had become in his own bubble. Tanya often encouraged him to talk to Athena, to resolve the issues that had driven them apart. She didn't understand that Igor was battling fear and guilt. What he wanted most was a better future, but now, with the discovery of the prize, everything seemed even more confusing. As the day of the divorce approached, Igor found himself reflecting on what truly mattered. He remembered the good moments he had shared with Athena, the dreams they had together, and the hope they once held. The idea of moving on without her felt unbearable, but the possibility of a new life with all that money was tempting. He was at a turning point, where each choice had the potential to shape not only his future but also Athena's. The tension mounted, and amid all of this, the question that wouldn't leave his mind arose. What is truly worth it in life? Igor began to realize that money could buy material things but could not buy happiness or a true relationship. The internal struggle between his desires and his principles intensified, leading him on a journey of self-discovery he never imagined he would have to face. With a heavy heart, he prepared for what would be one of the most important days of his life. What would he do upon discovering that luck had knocked at his door at the most unexpected moment? The answer was about to be revealed, and Igor found himself facing a choice that could change everything. Igor sat at a small cafe table in front of the restaurant, watching the hustle and bustle of the city while his mind boiled with thoughts. The day of the divorce was approaching, and the lottery call still echoed in his mind like a disturbing echo. He remembered Athena, with her sweet smile and eyes full of dreams. Those moments now seemed so distant, almost as if they belonged to another life. The arguments and frustration had become their daily routine, but there was a time when everything seemed possible. He hesitated to accept that life could have changed for the better, but the truth was that a new beginning could come with a cost he was not willing to pay. Meanwhile, Tanya, the waitress who had always supported him, approached the table. With her optimistic demeanor, she seemed like a breath of fresh air. She asked him how he was feeling, her gaze curious and kind. Tanya always seemed to know when he was struggling with something. He replied that he was just thinking about life, trying to hide the storm brewing inside him. He knew he couldn't tell her about the prize. The secret weighed on his heart, and the idea of sharing the fortune with Athena left him in a constant state of anguish. Tanya reassured him, saying she knew he was going through a tough time but reminded him that he could always count on her. She had always believed in him, even when he himself did not. It was a friendship that blossomed amid adversity, and he valued it more than he could express. But the idea of sharing his concerns about the divorce and the lottery felt like a betrayal. "Thank you, Tanya. I appreciate it," Igor said, forcing a smile. He wondered if she could understand the complexity of his situation. How could he explain that the life he had always wanted was now within his reach? Yet he was also on the verge of losing everything. The internal conflict consumed his mind, and with each passing day, he felt more lost. The conversation with Tanya led him to think about Athena again. Although their relationship had worn thin, there was a time when they shared laughter and hopes. The idea of a future together felt so distant now. He wondered if Athena still loved him, or if frustration had extinguished the love that had once burned brightly. What would he do if, suddenly, she decided to fight for them again? He found himself in a dilemma, caught between the temptation of a new beginning and the weight of what he would leave behind. That night, while at home, the tension within him reached a critical point. Athena entered the room, and the atmosphere grew heavy. She looked at him with a mix of sadness and anger. "You're thinking about how all this is going to end, aren't you?" she asked, her voice trembling with emotion. Igor felt his heart race. How could she know? I just want this to end," he replied, his voice faltering. "I can't live like this anymore." He knew he was being evasive, but he couldn't open up about the lottery. The fear of how she would react, the fear that she might want a share of what he had, paralyzed him. "Living like this? You're just running away, Igor. And if you think this is going to solve your problems, you're mistaken," Athena said, frustration evident in her words. "You need to face what's happening between us. What do you really want?" The question hit him like a punch to the stomach. What did he really want? He wanted freedom, but he also wanted love. He wanted security, but he also dreamed of having Athena by his side. I don't know anymore," he responded, tears welling in his eyes. The internal struggle intensified, and he felt the walls closing in around him. "You can be better than this, Igor. You can always be better. But you need to stop running," Athena said, the vulnerability in her voice revealing the pain they both shared. The emotion in the air was palpable, and Igor realized that if he continued to hide, he might lose everything that truly mattered. In the following days, the pressure mounted. The lottery prize became more real with each moment, and the signing of the divorce papers loomed closer. Igor found himself in a cycle of doubt and uncertainty. He talked to Tanya, who encouraged him to reflect on his choices. But with each conversation, he felt more divided. What should have been a moment of celebration turned into an emotional burden. You need to decide what is more important, Igor, Tanya said one afternoon while cleaning a table. Money can come and go, but the people we love stay with us forever if we know how to take care of them. Those words echoed in his mind as he walked home. He wondered if he was truly prepared for what the future held. What did he really desire? A new beginning, far from Athena, or the chance to rebuild something that, despite the difficulties, could still be valuable? The choice seemed harder each day, and the pressure to decide became unbearable. That night, Igor sat on his bed, his mind filled with conflicting thoughts. He wanted it all, but he knew he couldn't have it. Life was about to change, but he wondered if he was ready for that change, and more importantly, if he was willing to let go of what truly mattered. The journey of self-discovery he was about to embark on was more complex than any prize he could win. And as doubt enveloped him, he felt that the Real Prize might very well be reconciliation and the chance to rewrite his story alongside Athena. Igor sat in silence on the bed, staring at the ceiling for long minutes. Each thought that passed through his mind felt like a grain of sand, forming a storm that wouldn't let him be at peace. The conversation with Athena still echoed, and her frustration followed him like a shadow. He didn't want to live like this, but the idea of leaving everything behind, including the good moments they had, tormented him. The next morning, he decided he needed a break. A walk might clear his mind. As he stepped outside, the streets of the city felt noisier than ever. The sun shone, but the light couldn't penetrate the fog of his thoughts. He walked aimlessly, his mind filled with unanswered questions. What did he really want? And what did it mean to be happy? As he passed by the park, he saw a group of children playing. Their laughter cut through his inner fog, and he remembered how he used to play with Athena. Those moments of pure happiness now felt so distant. He stopped to watch, and suddenly, a wave of nostalgia and sadness washed over him. What had been lost amid so many arguments and misunderstandings? The cost of divorce was not just financial. It was emotional, and he didn't know if he was willing to pay. At work, the routine felt suffocating. Tanya was always there, with her encouraging smile and supportive words. But even her friendship began to show cracks. When he started to pull away, she noticed. You can't isolate yourself, Igor. That's not how you solve things, she said one afternoon, concern evident in her tone. He tried to explain, but the words failed him. The friendship that had once been a safe harbor now felt like a source of pressure. You're changing, and not for the better, Tanya continued, her voice trembling. I just want you to be happy, but you seem to be losing yourself. That conversation hit him like a blow. He was losing himself and didn't know how to come back. Going out with Tanya, laughing like before, had become difficult. He felt that, at the same time he was losing Athena, he was also pushing Tanya away. The weight of loneliness began to feel oppressive. In the following days, the anguish only increased. Igor tried to concentrate on work, but thoughts about the divorce and the lottery wouldn't leave him in peace. He remembered the plans he made with Athena, the dreams they built together. How was it possible that all of that had unraveled amidst arguments and misunderstandings? With every document he passed to sign, with every conversation he had with his lawyer, he felt like he was burying a part of himself. One night, while reviewing the paperwork, he found an old note from Athena. It was a message full of love, written at a moment of happiness. I promise we will always be together, no matter what happens, it said. Tears streamed down his face as he held that piece of paper. He knew the promise was still there, but between them lay an abyss that seemed impossible to cross. The pressure to decide what to do with the lottery winnings was mounting. The lawyer was urging him to make a quick decision, while Atina seemed to be thinking about how to deal with the separation. The idea of dividing the prize tormented him. He knew that if he spoke about it, he might open a Pandora's box that he wasn't ready to face. The fear of what could happen, the possibility of Atina wanting everything, left him paralyzed. The dilemma intensified when Atina sought him out. "We need to talk, Igor." "About us," she said, with an expression that mixed hope and pain. He felt his heart race. The last thing he wanted was to confront the reality of his choices at that moment. But at the same time, the possibility of a fresh start attracted him powerfully. "I don't know if this will help," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "Things have changed a lot." He remembered Tanya, how she believed that friendship and love were more important than any amount of money. But what did he really want? What was he willing to sacrifice? The conversations with Atina were painful. They discussed what went wrong, the dreams that were left behind. With every word, Igor felt the weight of guilt and frustration. He wished everything were different, but he didn't know how to make it happen. The feelings of frustration consumed him, and with each passing day, he felt more lost. That same day, when he returned home, he found Tanya at his door. She had a worried look, and upon seeing him, she realized something was wrong. "Igor, you need to talk. What's happening with you?" she insisted. He hesitated, but the pressure of the situation forced him to open up. The desperation in his voice made him feel vulnerable, but also relieved. "I'm at a crossroads, Tanya. I don't know what to do with my life. The divorce, the lottery, all of this is consuming me," he confessed, his voice choked. And as he spoke, the confusion began to dissipate a little. He realized he needed help, that he couldn't solve everything alone. Tanya's words were like balm for his soul. She listened without judgment, and that gave him some comfort. Despite her own struggle, she seemed determined to support him. "You're not alone, Igor. Sometimes, we need someone to help us find our way," she said. And he felt that maybe there was still hope. With a heavy heart, but a little lighter, Igor decided he needed to face Atina again. The conversation he had with Tanya encouraged him to seek the truth, to confront his fears and insecurities. He knew the path would be difficult, but now he was willing to try. He wanted to rewrite his story, and that meant he needed to open his heart. That night, as he looked out the window, he reflected on everything he had been through. The road ahead was still uncertain, but a new determination began to well up inside him. The lessons he was learning along this journey were painful but essential. He realized that the true prize wasn't the money, but the connections he could still save and the choices he could still make. With that in mind, he prepared to face whatever was coming, determined not to be defeated by the fears of the past. Igor decided it was time to confront Atina once more. The conversation with Tanya had been like a beacon in the darkness. He couldn't keep hiding from his feelings. He needed to face reality, even if it meant reopening wounds that seemed never to heal. Thus, he prepared for the meeting with Atina, feeling his heart heavy and his mind tumultuous. That afternoon, as he entered the cafe where they used to go, a wave of memories hit him. The smell of fresh coffee, the sound of laughter in the background, and the sight of Atina sitting at the table made him feel a mix of nostalgia and pain. She looked at him with an expression that blended expectation and fear, as if she too were battling her own demons. Igor took a deep breath, trying to gather the courage that had been lacking on so many other occasions. The conversation started timidly, with hesitant words and glances that avoided meeting. But as the sentences unfolded, the tension began to rise. They talked about what had happened, about the mistakes made and the promises unfulfilled. Each word exchanged felt like a blow, and Igor felt the weight of guilt crushing his chest. He remembered how their relationship had been full of love and hope, and now everything seemed so distant. "I didn't want things to come to this point," said Athena, her voice trembling. "I still remember how happy we were." Tears began to slide down her face, and Igor realized that she was also facing the pain of separation. He felt a tightness in his heart, knowing that, in some way, he was also responsible for this. "I know I was wrong, Athena," he replied, sincerity in his voice. "I got lost in all of this. I was selfish and let the arguments take over our lives." Regret weighed on him like an anchor, but at the same time, there was a sense of relief in finally sharing his feelings. It was as if a part of his soul that had been trapped began to break free. The silence that followed was heavy with emotion. Igor realized that the conversation was not just about the end of a relationship, but about the quest for forgiveness and understanding. He wanted Athena to know that, despite all the mistakes, he still valued the good moments they had together. The internal struggle between what had been and what could be made everything even more complicated. "And now?" Athena asked, her voice almost a whisper. "What are we going to do with all of this?" The question lingered in the air like a dark cloud, and Igor felt that the future lay in his hands. The lottery prize was still a shadow, but in that moment, the real question was how they could rebuild their lives, together or apart. "I don't know," he replied honestly. "I just know that I need time. Time to understand what I really want and whether there's still something we can do to fix this." In saying this, he realized that he was not just talking about Athena but also about himself. The path ahead was uncertain, but he felt that, for the first time, he was ready to face it. The conversation continued, and each word they exchanged became a building block, another brick in the wall separating them. It was painful but also liberating. They talked about their fears, their shattered dreams, and the dwindling trust. Igor remembered moments when happiness felt tangible and how all of that had been lost amidst the arguments and misunderstandings. When he finally said goodbye to Athena, his heart felt lighter, but uncertainty still accompanied him. He realized he had to deal with his emotions and accept that the road to recovery would be long and full of obstacles. As he left the cafe, a new determination began to blossom within him. He couldn't change the past, but he could learn from it. In the days that followed, Igor began to reflect on what it really meant to be successful. He had always believed that money and security were fundamental, but now, in light of his conversation with Athena, he realized that true success lay in the connections he formed and in how he related to the people around him. Tanya's friendship and the memories of Athena made him see that happiness was not a finish line, but a continuous journey. With this in mind, he decided to open up more to Tanya. He wanted her to know how much her friendship meant to him and how he was willing to fight not to lose himself along the way. With a lighter heart and a clearer mind, Igor began to see life differently. He was ready to learn from his mistakes, not let the past define him, and seek happiness in the little things. Each new day, he allowed himself to feel, to cry, and, above all, to learn. He knew the journey would be long, but now he had a new purpose: to find true happiness, not just for himself but also for those he loved. And with that, Igor realized that maybe, just maybe, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. Igor left the cafe feeling torn. The conversation with Athena had been a true turning point, but the freedom he hoped to find did not come immediately. Instead, a new wave of doubts washed over him. He walked the streets, his gaze lost, reflecting on everything that had been said. The weight of regret and uncertainty felt even more intense. What did he really want? Was it possible to fix things with Athena, or would it be better to move on? In the following days, this internal struggle intensified. He found himself thinking of Athena at every free moment. Memories of the happy days they had spent together haunted him, but the pain of the arguments tormented him as well. What would have happened if he had acted differently? How would it have been if he had valued the little things more? Igor tried to distract himself with work, but even that didn't seem enough to fill the void forming inside him. Tanya, noticing the change in Igor's behavior, decided it was time to act. One afternoon, while they were having coffee at her house, she finally broached the subject. "You seem distant, Igor. Is there something you want to share?" The concern in her tone was evident, and Igor felt the need to open his heart. "I spoke with Athena," he said hesitantly, "and, well, things aren't so simple. I feel like I'm fighting against my own demons, and I don't know how to get out of this. The sincerity in his voice made Tanya move closer, creating a safe space for him to express himself. It's normal to feel lost, especially after such an intense conversation, Tanya replied. But you need to understand that this is an opportunity, a chance to learn from your mistakes and become a better person. Her words were like a balm for Igor's soul, but insecurity still accompanied him. The conversation with Tanya helped him realize that he was not alone on this journey. The friendships he had cultivated over the years were an important support, and he should not let his fears isolate him. But the idea of confronting his flaws was daunting. What was going through his mind was like a complicated puzzle, and he wasn't sure how to piece it together. In the following days, Igor began to allow himself to feel more intensely. He sat in his room, reflecting on his choices. What did he really want from life? He started writing in a journal, recording his thoughts and feelings. It was a relief to get everything out, and gradually, he began to identify patterns in his behavior. He felt the need to change, but change would not be easy. Atina, for her part, was also dealing with her emotions. The conversation at the cafe had left her confused and vulnerable. She knew she still loved Igor, but the pain and resentment were alive within her. Talking with her friends helped a little, but the truth was that she felt alone amidst so many doubts. What if they couldn't go back to being the way they were? She wondered aloud as she looked out the window, lost in thought. Atina's relationship with her friends began to deepen, as they became her support during this difficult time. They encouraged her to open up to new possibilities, but Atina still hesitated. What if I forgive him and he doesn't change? What do I do if he makes the same mistakes again? These questions haunted her, and she didn't know how to find the answers. Igor and Atina were on parallel paths, both struggling internally, but unsure how to reconnect. While Igor was striving to understand his shortcomings, Atina was trying to cope with the pain she felt. The distance between them seemed to grow, but strangely, there was a quiet hope that they might find a way back to each other. Tanya's friendship with Igor began to strengthen during this period. She had always been an advocate for honesty and vulnerability, and their conversations became increasingly profound. You need to be kind to yourself, Tanya said. These changes don't happen overnight. You're on the right path, and that's what matters. Igor felt that Tanya was an anchor amid the emotional storm he was facing. At the same time, he began to realize that the relentless pursuit of success and wealth did not bring the satisfaction he had thought it would. He looked at what truly mattered in his life: the relationships, the people he loved. This new perspective helped him understand that, to achieve happiness, he first needed to reconnect with himself and with others. As the weeks went by, Igor decided it was time to try reaching out to Atina again. He wanted to open up about his reflections, about the steps he was trying to take to become a better version of himself. So, on a sunny day, he sent her a message, inviting her to meet again. He didn't know what to expect, but he felt it was a necessary step. When Atina received the message, she hesitated. The fear of getting hurt again was strong, but something in Igor's sincerity made her think it might be time to give this new conversation a chance. She replied with a simple yes, and the anticipation of a new meeting began to arise. They were both at a turning point, and the possibility of starting over, even if uncertain, was a sign of hope. And so, Igor's journey continued. He still faced fears and insecurities, but now there was a new purpose. The path to overcoming and reconnecting with Atina was unfolding before him, and he was determined to walk it, one step at a time. Igor took a deep breath before sending the message to Atina. Anxiety pulsed in his chest, but he knew he needed to take this step. It was not just about trying to regain what they had, but about opening up to the possibility of a new beginning. When Atina's reply arrived, a simple yes, a mix of relief and nervousness washed over him. He wanted this meeting to be different, to bring new meaning. In the days that followed, Igor dedicated himself to preparing. He didn't just want to talk. He wanted to turn that opportunity into something meaningful. He revisited his reflections in the journal, noting his failures and the lessons he had learned. "Accepting my mistakes doesn't make me weak, but rather stronger," he wrote. That phrase became a mantra he repeated to himself, seeking the courage to face what was to come. Finally, the day of the meeting arrived. Igor dressed carefully, choosing a shirt that reminded him of the good times they had shared. Upon arriving at the cafe, his heart raced. He sat at a table near the window, the sun illuminating his face. When Atina walked in, their eyes met, and a wave of emotions washed over him. He saw insecurity and hope in her eyes, and it encouraged him. "Hi, Atina," he said, trying to smile. "Thank you for coming." "Hi, Igor," she replied, with a shy smile. "I appreciate it too. I was wondering if you still wanted to talk about us." Igor nodded. "Yes, I really do. I've been reflecting a lot about myself and what happened between us. I realized I stopped valuing the little things, and that made me lose you. I'm really sorry for that." The words came more naturally than he had imagined. Atina looked at him intently, and he could see she was absorbing every word. "I also made mistakes, Igor. I let the pain of our fights overshadow what really mattered. Sometimes, I wonder if I can forgive and move on." Her sincerity touched him. "I understand, and I don't expect everything to be resolved at once. But I want you to know that I'm willing to work on this. For me, true wealth isn't in material achievements, but in the relationships we build. And I want to do that with you." Atina lowered her gaze, thoughtful. "It's hard for me to believe that things can change. The fear of repeating the same mistakes haunts me. I am also scared," he confessed. "But I realize that facing our fears is an essential step. I have been working on myself, reflecting on my actions and how they have impacted our relationship. I want to be a better person, not just for you, but for myself." Igor's words seemed to resonate with Athena, who began to relax. "This is encouraging to hear. I am also trying to find my way, but it's complicated. Sometimes I feel lost. What if we tried to support each other? We can learn together. Our mistakes can be the foundation for something stronger, something that unites us," he suggested, his voice full of hope. Athena looked up, her emotional reflections evident. "Do you really believe we can do this?" "Yes, I believe. We can build a new path if we are willing to face our fears and be honest with each other. I am here, Athena. I want to be part of your life, but in a different, healthier way." The dialogue between them began to open doors that had been locked for a long time. They started to share not only their fears but also their hopes. With each word, Igor felt that he was freeing himself from his old insecurities. "I don't want to live in the shadow of what was, but of what we can be," he said with conviction. "And it starts with honesty. I want us to support each other, even when things get tough." Athena smiled, and the tension that had previously been present between them began to dissipate. "I want that too. I want to believe we can be better together." The conversation flowed, and Igor realized that each small step they were taking together was a sign of growth. He began to understand that overcoming challenges was not a destination, but a continuous journey. He was learning to trust himself more and also to make space for Athena to feel safe. In those moments, Igor felt a friendship solidifying, not only between them but also with Tanya. The conversations he had with her had helped him prepare for this opportunity. He realized that by opening up to vulnerability, he was allowing relationships to become deeper and more meaningful. The meeting ended, but the sense of renewal remained. As they walked together through the streets, Igor felt that, although the future was uncertain, there was hope. He was learning to see the value in his failures, to accept that growth often comes from difficulties. He didn't have all the answers, but he was ready to face whatever came, with Athena by his side. Looking up at the sky, Igor realized that life was full of possibilities. And above all, he was willing to continue the journey, one step at a time, in search of a brighter and more meaningful future. Igor and Athena walked through the sunlit streets, the conversation flowing more naturally than he could have imagined. However, a shadow loomed over the growing joy. As they talked about their hopes and fears, Igor felt a pang of anxiety forming in his chest. He knew he needed to be honest about what was truly bothering him, but the idea of revealing his vulnerability was terrifying. After a few minutes of silence, he decided it was time. "Athena," he began, his voice trembling. "I need to be honest. Despite being here, talking about building something new, I am afraid this won't work. What if we fail again? What if I can't be the person you need?" The words left his mouth like a weight, and he saw how Athena's expression changed. She looked ahead, as if absorbing the gravity of what he had said. "I am also scared, Igor. The past still weighs on me. Sometimes I wonder if I can really leave all of this behind." The tension between them increased, and what had once seemed a safe space began to transform into an emotional minefield. "I know you might feel that way," he said, his voice low. "But I don't want fear to stop us from trying. I don't want to live with regret. What if we try and it doesn't work?" Athena questioned, the sadness in her gaze palpable. "What if history repeats itself?" Igor took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. He remembered all the times he had felt lost, those nights when he couldn't sleep because of guilt. "I can't promise there won't be difficulties," he replied, honesty weighing in his voice. "But I can promise that I will fight. I will strive to be different. For us to be different." Athena seemed contemplative, but the expression on her face showed the internal battle she was facing. "But what if I can't trust you again? What if my heart can't bear another disappointment?" Igor's heart raced. He realized this was the central issue. He didn't want Athena to just forgive him. He wanted her to trust him again. "I understand what you are saying. I broke your trust in the past, and that is something I cannot change. But I want to be proof that people can change. That I can change." The tension was palpable, and the silence that followed felt like an echo of their insecurities. But deep down, there was a spark of hope. Igor looked into Athena's eyes and saw her struggle. He knew he needed to do something more, something that could break down the barriers rising between them. "Remember that time we went to the park and you taught me how to ride a bike?" He tried to bring a bit of lightness to the conversation, a smile shining on his face. "I fell so many times, but you never gave up on helping me. You always said that the only way to learn was to get up every time we fell." Athena smiled slightly, but the concern was still there. "Yes, I remember. You were so stubborn. And I am still today," he joked, trying to make her laugh. "But what I mean is that even when we fall, we have the chance to get up and try again. I want us to do this, not just for ourselves, but for each other." The light in Athena's eyes began to shine again. She was starting to understand that their journey didn't have to be marked by fear, but by the courage to try. "I want to believe this is possible, Igor. But what if I can't open up? What if I close up again?" "Then I will be here," he replied, firm in his convictions. "I will be here to remind you that we are not alone. For every step you take, I will be by your side, holding your hand. And if you fall, I will help you get up. Because that is what we do when we truly care." Igor's words resonated deeply with Athena. She felt a wave of emotions, as if she were allowing herself to believe in the possibility of a different future. With tear-filled eyes, she said, "This is all I really want. Someone who is willing to fight with me, not just for us, but for everything we can still be." Igor felt a wave of relief. He realized that the true battle was not just about rekindling a relationship, but about building a new foundation based on trust and love. "So let's do this together," he affirmed, determined. "Let's face our challenges, one day at a time." Athena nodded, a new glimmer of hope appearing in her gaze. The tension that had once filled the air began to dissipate, giving way to a new energy. They were ready to face the future, armed with the lessons of the past and the desire to be better. As they walked, Igor felt that he was finally finding his inner strength. He understood that true success was not in avoiding failures, but in learning from them and allowing himself to start over. And with Athena by his side, he was willing to face any difficulty that arose, trusting that together they could build a stronger and more meaningful path. The sun was setting on the horizon, and with it, a new phase of their lives was beginning. They were ready to embrace the unknown. Together, Igor and Athena continued to walk under the soft light of the evening, still immersed in the emotions exchanged moments before. The conversation had been a turning point, a moment when vulnerability had become the bridge between their fears and hopes. As they looked at each other, they knew that what they were building was fragile, yet immensely powerful. In the following days, their lives began to change. Igor committed to being more transparent, sharing not only his achievements but also his doubts and insecurities. He realized that by doing this, he was not only opening his heart but also encouraging Athena to do the same. Each conversation became a new step in the rebuilding of a relationship that had been shaken but not destroyed. Athena, in turn, found the courage to open up more. She began to talk about her past experiences, about the wounds that still hurt, and this helped her process emotions that had previously been just a burden. With Igor's support, she began to understand that her struggles would not define her. "I am not just what happened to me," she reflected on a sunny afternoon while they were having coffee in a small cafe. "I am also the choices I make now." These conversations became the foundation of a new phase. They both began to realize that true success was not in avoiding mistakes but in learning from them. Igor, especially, realized that each failure from the past was a lesson that made him stronger. He didn't need to carry guilt as a burden. Instead, he could use it as a guide. With each step, he felt more confident in his ability to be a better partner. Time passed, and as their relationship strengthened, other aspects of their lives began to flourish as well. Athena threw herself into a new project at work, a challenge that had once intimidated her. With Igor's support, she embraced the opportunity, feeling more capable of facing challenges. "I would never have done this before," she confessed one night as they discussed their plans. "But now I feel like I have someone who supports me, someone who believes in me." Igor also began to seek new opportunities. He enrolled in a photography course, an old passion he had put aside. As he explored this new facet of himself, he remembered Athena's words about getting back up after falls. Each photo he took was a new way to express himself and, at the same time, a way to rediscover his own identity. Their friendship deepened. They learned to laugh together again, to share simple moments that had once seemed distant. Each small gesture of affection, each laugh, each conversation became another brick in the construction of an emotional home they both desired. Athena began to realize that even amidst uncertainties, there was beauty in the journey they were on. Life doesn't have to be perfect to be good, she reflected as they watched the sunset on one of their outings. Igor and Athena's friends also noticed the transformation. Seeing them together, many felt inspired by the changes they were making in their lives. The support they offered each other spread, creating a network of support that benefited not only them but also those around them. Their friendship became an example of what it means to move forward, even when the past brings challenges. Igor's interactions with his friends changed. He became more open and willing to share his vulnerabilities. He used to wear a mask of perfection, but now he saw value in being honest. This new approach brought depth to their friendships, which became more meaningful. He told a friend during a meeting that he was no longer the guy who tried to hide his flaws. He was learning to embrace everything he was, and that was liberating. Similarly, Athena began to cultivate friendships with people who supported her on her journey. She realized that love and friendship were essential for her growth. Conversations with new friends helped her understand the importance of sharing experiences and supporting each other. It was amazing how the connection with the right people could change everything, she reflected, while having coffee with a new friend who encouraged her to be bolder in her professional life. Both of their lives were transforming in profound and significant ways. Igor and Athena were no longer prisoners of their fears and insecurities. They learned that true strength does not come from the absence of flaws, but from the willingness to get up every time they fall. With this, they began to build not only a stronger relationship but also a future filled with possibilities. As they walked together on one of their outings, Athena looked at Igor and smiled. She acknowledged that she still had fears, but now she knew she wasn't alone, and that made all the difference. Igor squeezed her hand, feeling the warmth of mutual support. They were in this together and would continue to try, step by step. Their words echoed in the air, and with each step they took, they felt more assured that they were on the right path. Life wasn't perfect, but it was full of love, learning, and the promise of new beginnings. The sun was slowly setting, illuminating the horizon, bringing with it the certainty that tomorrow would bring new opportunities to grow and love together. Igor gazed at the horizon, where the sky blended in shades of orange and pink. The last few months had been a roller coaster of emotions, but reflecting on it, he felt grateful for every challenge he had faced. The journey of overcoming not only shaped him but also allowed him to discover the strength that had always been within him. He realized that it wasn't just about defeating fears but about learning to coexist with them and still moving forward. Igor's life was now filled with new opportunities. He continued to explore his passion for photography, capturing moments that had previously gone unnoticed. Each click of the camera was a way to express his emotions, a means to tell stories that would otherwise remain hidden. What had once been a hobby transformed into something more meaningful, reflecting not only his worldview but also his new perspective on life. Athena, by his side, had also changed impressively. The courage she found to open up and share her experiences helped her become a more confident professional. The project that once intimidated her was now her passion, and she felt fulfilled seeing the impact her work could have on people's lives. Athena learned that her experiences, even the most painful ones, were just parts of her story and did not define who she was. This new vision freed her. The friendship that Igor and Athena cultivated along their journey spread, inspiring others around them. They became an example of resilience and mutual support, and their stories of overcoming challenges touched many lives. Friends and acquaintances began to open up about their own struggles, encouraged by the couple's example. Igor realized that vulnerability was not a sign of weakness but a bridge connecting people more deeply. Over time, Igor and Athena became mentors to those seeking help in their own journeys. They often organized gatherings where they shared their experiences and offered support. The impact they had on the lives of those around them was palpable. The stories of transformation and new beginnings that emerged from their interactions showed that everyone could find strength in difficulties. Igor frequently reflected on what he had learned. He understood that true success was not about accumulating material possessions, but about cultivating meaningful relationships and being a positive force in the lives of others. He began to measure his success not only by what he had achieved, but by how much he had contributed to the well-being of those around him. This shift in perspective brought him a new inner peace. Life wasn't perfect, but Igor learned to find beauty in imperfections. He remembered his flaws and how they had helped him grow. He no longer feared mistakes. Instead, he saw them as opportunities for learning. This wisdom guided him in his decisions, and he felt more prepared to face any challenges that lay ahead. The lessons that Igor and Athena learned throughout their journey became an integral part of who they were. They began to live according to these teachings, prioritizing honesty, vulnerability, and mutual support. The choices they made became more conscious, grounded in the understanding that each action had the power to impact not only their lives but also the lives of those around them. Igor also realized that the unexpected friendship that had emerged between them had transformed his outlook on the world. Previously, he felt isolated in his struggles, but now he understood that support and connection with others were essential for personal growth. His relationship with Athena was not just romantic but a deep partnership, where they encouraged each other to be better every day. In the tranquility of an afternoon, while reflecting on everything he had experienced, Igor felt a profound peace. He was in harmony with his emotions, accepting what the past had brought, but without allowing it to define his future. He knew that the journey of self-discovery would never end, but he was ready to face it with an open heart and a receptive mind. What had begun as a path filled with uncertainties had now transformed into a journey of hope and love. Igor and Athena, together, learned that life was made up of ups and downs, but the beauty lay in how they chose to dance with each of them. As they walked side by side, they knew that the future was full of possibilities, and with each step, they were building a story that would inspire many others to find their own light amidst the shadows. Igor gazed at the landscape stretching out before him, a spectacle of colors reflecting the beauty of life and its complexities. Yet, even amidst this beauty, a shadow of sadness lingered over his heart. Athena, his partner in this journey of self-discovery, had gradually distanced herself in recent months. The responsibilities of work and the pressures of daily life, which once united them, now seemed to create a chasm between them. On a quiet afternoon, Igor decided it was time to talk. They sat on the park bench where they had so often shared laughter and dreams. The sun was beginning to set, casting a soft glow over the scene, but the atmosphere was charged with tension. "Athena, I feel like we are drifting apart," he began, his voice trembling. "Our paths seem different now." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the same concern. "I feel it too, Igor. I'm so immersed in my work and my own struggles that I've lost my way a bit." The air was heavy with the sincerity of their words. It was painful to acknowledge that, despite all their achievements and overcoming challenges, there was a fragility in the relationship they had built. Igor took a deep breath, recalling the moments when they had supported each other, the sleepless nights discussing their fears and hopes. "We have overcome so many things together. Athena, why can't we face this too?" His voice, choked with emotion, echoed in the silence of the park. Athena looked away, thoughtful. Perhaps because what we are facing now is different. It's not just an external struggle, but an internal one. I'm trying to find my way, and that has pulled me away from you. Tears began to roll down her face, and Igor felt his heart tighten. He knew her well. He understood how her vulnerabilities could be overwhelming. "I understand. I'm also struggling, but I want you to know that I'm here. I will always be here," he said, holding her hand. But inside, uncertainty grew. He wondered if, despite all the love they shared, their individual journeys would lead them in opposite directions. Days turned into weeks, and the distance between them widened. Athena devoted herself more and more to work, while Igor immersed himself in photography, trying to capture the beauty that still existed around him. The camera became his refuge, but it didn't fill the void left by Athena's absence. He wanted to share his achievements with her, but communication had become scarce. On a rainy night, Igor decided it was time for one last effort. He prepared an album with his best photographs, each image representing an important moment of their journey together. Beside each photo, he wrote a small reflection, a reminder of what they had lived and what they could still build. "This is for you, Athena," he said, handing the album over with trembling hands. "I want you to see what we are, what we have achieved together. I don't want to lose this." She flipped through the pages, tears streaming down her face as memories flooded her mind. "Igor, I don't know if I can." Her voice faltered. "I feel like I'm drifting away from everything we built, and I don't know if I can come back." Her response echoed like a blow to his chest. The truth was that, although they loved each other, their personal struggles had transformed them in ways that perhaps they could no longer reconnect. The love still existed, but it was now overshadowed by the pain of emotional distance. Igor felt a wave of despair. "I don't want this to end, Athena. You are the light that guided me in moments of darkness. Without you, everything feels empty." He was battling the pain of loss, even knowing that the relationship was disintegrating. "I also don't want it to end, but maybe we need to understand that sometimes, even the best stories have an ending. That doesn't diminish what we lived," she replied, the sadness in her voice palpable. The conversation ended in a heavy silence, where both realized that, despite the love that still existed, there was a reality they could not ignore. Life had taken them down different paths, and now they needed to find the strength to accept that. In the days that followed, Igor revisited every corner of the park, every photograph he had taken with Athena. The beauty of the world around him was not enough to fill the void left by her absence. He learned that life is a dance between joy and sorrow, and that sometimes, goodbyes are part of the journey. Looking at the sky, now tinged with gray, he realized that the vibrant colors of before had faded. Reflecting on his journey taught him that, even amidst pain, there were valuable lessons to be learned. Overcoming did not mean the absence of pain, but learning to live with it. Igor knew that life would continue its course. He would keep Athena in his heart and in the photographs he took. He knew that these memories would be his strength in future battles. The love they shared would become part of his story, but the sadness of their separation would be a constant reminder that, no matter how hard they tried, some things cannot be saved. Thus, he moved forward, not without a last glance at the past where light and shadow coexisted. And as he walked, he made a silent request to the universe, that others would find the courage to love, even when pain became inevitable. Life would go on, and he was determined to make it something beautiful, even if marked by the absence of Athena. Time would pass, but the message he wanted to leave would echo. It is in difficulties that we find our strength, and it is in vulnerability that we discover true human connection. And so, he was bidding farewell not only to Athena but to a part of himself, ready to start anew, even if the path was solitary. If you identified with the journey of Igor and Athena, share your own experiences in the comments. Let's reflect together on the lessons life teaches us and the importance of valuing every moment. Like and subscribe to the channel to keep receiving stories that touch the heart. After all, your interactions help us bring more content that inspires and transforms. Let's embark on this journey together.